As Hurricane Harvey slammed the Texas coastline last night, the White House dropped some major news that President Trump had pardoned former Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio. It's an incredibly controversial move that the White House apparently hoped a Category 4 storm might overshadow, and here's why. As the self-proclaimed world's toughest sheriff, Arpaio became the face of the immigration crackdown. In 2011, as part of a racial profiling lawsuit, a U.S. district judge ordered Arpaio to stop detaining Latinos simply because he believed they were in the country illegally. Arpaio refused to comply with that order. He told television reporters that he would, quote, never give in to control by the federal government. And so last month, the 85-year-old was convicted of criminal contempt for refusing to obey the court's order. I'm joined now by Mr. Arpaio's attorney, Jack Wilenchik. Jack, thanks for joining us. A number of Republicans are now slamming the president's decision to pardon your client. Senator John McCain says this, I quote, "It undermines his claim for the respect of rule of law, as Mr. Arpaio has shown no remorse for his actions." Republican Congressman Justin Amash writing, quote, "Arpaio was convicted of defying court order to stop violating the Fourth Amendment. It's a pardon of a government official who ignored the Bill of Rights." What's your reaction?
Well, you know, it's people like that and anybody who questions this pardon, I invite them to actually study this case and understand what it was about. And one of the big problems we had here was that we never got a jury, which is something we asked for multiple times. But, you know, to people like that, I say, you know what, I would have loved to have you on a jury, because you would have seen this order was actually very technical. It had nothing to do with race, nothing to do with Hispanics, nothing to do with Latinos. It was a very technical order that said that the sheriff's office is not a federal immigration agency, and therefore they cannot enforce federal immigration law. So what happened here is everybody at the sheriff's office did not understand this order, including the sheriff, because they looked at it and said, well, surely we can keep cooperating with the feds. We can keep turning people over to the feds, which is a common practice all across the country. That's what Sheriff Joe was convicted for. It was not for violating civil rights in the sense you and I think of it. It was for a very technical violation of a very ambiguous and hard to understand order.
I am just being told that as we've been talking, Speaker Paul Ryan, is publicly criticizing this pardon. Here's what his spokesman tells the Wall Street Journal. Quote, "The Speaker does not agree with the decision. Law enforcement officials have a special responsibility to respect the rights of everyone in the United States. We should not allow anyone to believe that responsibility is diminished by this pardon." So just to be clear, the Speaker is wrong here?
Speaker's wrong here, and this is why when politics, tries to mix with the courts, it's very tough. But at the end of the day here, the president did the right thing, because there should have been a jury in this case. We should have had one from day one. At this point, the appeals, in fact, the sheriff is an old man. We can't forget that. He's 85 years old. This would just be a lot more money and waste of time all around. So I would have rather seen this go to a jury in the first place, get the right verdict. But at this point, we're dealing with a wrongful verdict, an old man who can't deal with a lot more of this. So the Speaker's wrong, and again, I invite all these.
So let me ask you, though, because you talked about the rule of law and you talked about the way the system's supposed to work. Does Sheriff Joe Arpaio believe in this country's judicial system?
He does, and frankly, he's been mistreated by it. I don't believe he got a fair trial.
If he believes in the system, though, he got the trial. He was convicted by the system of criminal contempt.
The president is actually part of that system, and pardons are part of that system.
Absolutely. I'm not arguing that, but you are questioning the system and saying that it wasn't fair.
The system was not fair, and that's why a pardon here is the fair thing to do.
Okay, so Sheriff Joe Arpaio, he tweeted after this pardon, and I just want to ask you about this. He says, quote, "Thank you, real Donald Trump, for seeing my conviction for what it is, a political witch hunt by holdovers in the Obama Justice Department." Does he know the judge who ordered him to stop racial profiling was appointed by President Bush?
Well, the judge he's referring to was the judge in this criminal contempt trial, which again is a separate thing. And the judge in this criminal contempt trial was a Clinton appointee. For what that's worth, I'm not necessarily going to say that that's what colored her opinion. I think it was more an issue of the court trying to vindicate the court at the expense of the truth.
But wait, he's saying this was about politics, though, in the statement that your client made directly. But you're telling me that politics were part of the pardon as well. So can you have it both ways?
You can. You know what? I think it's a fitting thing. It really is, because this case started with politics. As I said earlier, this was about a very technical order, and the order was caused when the Obama administration revoked the sheriff's authority, his office's authority to be immigration officers. That's what started all this. It was a very political decision to stop the sheriff's office from being immigration officers. That led to the order that he was then accused of violating. So for the next president, the current president, to step in and undo that, so to speak, by undoing this conviction, it has a sort of fitting appropriateness to it, because this whole case started with a political act and it's ending with a political act.
Do you think that this pardon had something to do with Joe Arpaio's loyalty? Was he pardoned for being loyal to this president?
You know, it's a complicated question, because at the end of the day here, I don't think Joe would have been prosecuted, Sheriff Joe would not have been prosecuted, if not for his politics. So it colors this whole case. To answer your question, we all know that they like each other and like each other's politics, just like we all know that, the Obama administration did not like the sheriff's politics. So it's very hard to separate politics from this case. It's been a problem since day one, and that's why we've always asked for a jury to get to the bottom of the truth here and try to get an independent verdict, which we never got.
Now, CNN spoke with Daniel Magos. He's a key witness in the federal civil rights lawsuit against Arpaio. First, I want to give a little bit of his background to our viewers. He and his late wife were pulled over by a Maricopa County Sheriff's deputy. This was back in 2009. Without probable cause, they were searched. They were asked for proof of citizenship, even though his wife was born in Arizona and he had been a naturalized citizen for 50 years. And he told us, quote, this: I am experiencing anger, disbelief, disappointment. To me, it's just one criminal, one racist pardoning another one. They are all the same. Trump and Arpaio are the same. This is a low point of my emotional roller coaster. I know that it's your job to defend your client, Sheriff Arpaio, but can you understand perhaps why victims of Arpaio's racial profiling feel this way?
Yeah, the answer I have to them is, of course, the criminal case did not have to do with race, but the answer I have to them is, don't blame law enforcement.
It had to do with race based on what he was doing, in ignoring the judge's order had to do with race.
Not in the criminal case, but there was a separate order in 2013 that said the sheriff's office was using race as a factor, which it had been trained to do by the federal government, by the way. It was part of the federal government's manuals that use race as a factor. So, for people like that who feel like they're wrongfully detained, law enforcement is in a tough position. They have to understand that. And at the end of the day, I mean, you could blame law enforcement. You could blame the large number of illegal immigrants in this country, or you could blame the law. And I just don't think it's fair to blame law enforcement for it.
Jack Wilenchik, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.